welcome to another crazy episode of Founders Across Borders, where we feature the stories of founders who have been creating global impact out there and to actually transcend us with another story and insights. We are joined by the most amazing Miss Victoria Anderson. She has been building her own space, and at the same point in time she has also been leading marketing and culture. So she's been balancing crazily how content, IP, and how an entire universe of animation looks like, with the same point in time how culture, marketing, and strategy looks like to all of us. So it's such a pleasure to have you with us, Victoria, today. I'm so blessed that you're joining us today on the episode.
The pleasure is all mine. I am honored to be with you and to join this amazing community that's coming together under your leadership, Yukta. So thank you for having me.
Well, to kickstart the discussion, I'd love to understand from you that how did your interest in the content space begin? Like you figured out that, you really want to work more on the side of where the IPs are created and people see content or entertainment in a very different way than they see them today.
Sure. I will say that my love of reading and watching things, particularly with the goal of kind of learning something or growing or evolving in some way, started as a very young child. I remember when my dad got a set of encyclopedias for the first time when we were young, and how I just poured through those. Like that was my fun. So ingesting content and things like that has always been a passion of mine. But as my career has evolved into sort of the marketing and entertainment and cultural landscape, what I've grown an appreciation for is what happens behind the scenes to create these masterpieces that we see on TV and on film. And so the strategic thinking and the creativity that's involved and the teams that come together to take an idea or a piece of inspiration and to make it real has just kind of, I don't know, sort of inspired within me a desire to be a part of something like that, um,
Right.
and to make it travel.
Wow. That's really interesting to know that how, you've figured out that this is the space that you want to be in. And when I try to understand more about being unique in the space of creating content IPs, and as you mentioned, that helping people understand STEM science in a very different way. So, how do you compete with brands like Curiosity Stream or Discovery? Or there already have been a lot of content out there, and right now AI has done the work way easy in terms of you type a prompt and the video is generated. If you pay more, you can have better prompts and better snippets of videos. So how do you work with that?
I think that my perspective on what actually moves people and what actually grips and grasps them um, has to do with originality. And so while I appreciate and I see so much power in the power, I mean, in AI and technology and the way it's evolving and becoming more mainstream and commonplace and easy for people to grasp, what is true about AI is that it is generative and based on things that are already out there. And so while we see a lot of content and entertainment that is building upon IP that already existed or stories that already existed, books to TV is really brilliant. I think that where even those things that are remakes tend to have the most success are where there is a sort of an element of originality, whether that has to do with the way characters are expressed or the way ideas are tweaked and changed and adapted to a particular context. Yeah, that's my thought, is like, how do we still get to something that feels original?
Got it. And with that being said, something that looks more original and authentic, when I talk about creating authentic content, yet I want to sound professional, and I
Mhm.
need to work on algorithm. So how do you strike that balance when you are creating content, being authentic, yet having that hook and that structure that gets more views or gets more visibility out there?
I think it's an interesting balance to strike, and a lot of times it's really hit or miss. Because you look at, I was at the theater last night and watched a beautiful 2.5 hour film that was some of the most amazing cinematography I've ever experienced.
Right,
At least in the
right, 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 right.
few years. And that's one format. And I have certain expectations for that format. At the same time, I'm up this morning getting ready for a presentation, and I'm scrolling through TikTok, and my algorithm is serving up, homemade videos and things that people can record on their phone in their pockets as they're walking down the street. Here in New York, it is mounds and mounds of snow. So my algorithm is filled with that. And it doesn't require, in fact, it wouldn't adapt to the context to be polished, long form content. It's relatability. And so I think just trying to understand the context that you're operating within, the audience that you're trying to reach, and what their, sort of preferences might be. But then at the end of the day, I think that what people desire most is something that feels real. And so if it feels real to you, it's worth expressing. And then let's see how you might optimize it based on the response.
No, I really appreciate how you've put it in a way that it's still so much about testing, trial and error, but it
Sure.
needs to have an authentic voice wherein people feel connected or people feel that, yeah, this person's speaking to me and makes a lot of sense, which does make a lot of sense as well because it's important to understand what's working out there, what people really want, and do you have a voice or can your content create a
Sure.
voice that resonates with people out there? So, and since you've been working for some years in the cultural role as well as a cultural strategist, so do you think that the insights that you get from the day job helps you create better areas in the ecosystem that you're working in?
1,000,000%. What I love about the day job, if you will, is we work across so many different clients and formats and mediums and things that we're trying to achieve, and different functions coming together to try and get something made, whether that's the strategist or the client lead or the creator or the production artist, and all of these teams coming together to try and deliver upon something. And so by nature, I am a sponge. I am so clear that there is infinitely more that I don't know than that I do. And so I am constantly trying to soak up information. And in that way, I find myself being able to apply my day to day into the ambitions that I have and what we're trying to achieve with this entertainment IP, whether that's relationships and networks and things that I can tap, or whether it's just nuggets of ideas that seem to be applicable no matter the context. I know, we're on the Founders Across Borders podcast, and the different guests that you have are coming from all different areas of passions and
Right.
interests, and yet it's relatable. And there's nuggets to take from someone in a completely different field. And so, absolutely, the adjacencies work for me in really beautiful ways.
So, do you still feel that culture as a topic is relevant today? Like the conversations that you hear out there, I mean, they're coming from different directions. People are now talking about DEI and it's not there, and it's very varied out there. So, and I still work with an organization wherein we work with culture day in, day out. So, do you think that the word around culture is changing? And if yes, how are you navigating? Or do you think that you need to pivot someday into something else?
So it's interesting. What I would suggest is that the as happens when we get a hold of things and take them mainstream, the word itself is becoming, somewhat bankrupt. When you say cultural strategy, you might mean million different things or nothing at all in terms of the buzzword itself. But what it stands for and what it actually suggests, and there's a lot of wonderful books about the topic, but one of them that comes to mind is called For the Culture, and it's by a strategist that led a huge global agency years ago. And the way he breaks this down is based on some, really deep philosophical thinking. And what culture is, it's a meaning, it's a system of making meaning from my identity and your shared identity. It's the symbols that we use to mark who we are and what we care about. It's the way we talk about the things that are important to us. It's the rituals we define and build and develop around the things that we care about. And if you want to get people to move, there is no vehicle better than culture. And so understanding it truly and genuinely, I think is relevant and applicable to just about any context. But what I found is I rarely use the word, here's a cultural strategy, or here's we want to, be very connected to culture, or we want to be
Right.
the most culturally relevant brand in the world. It's like, okay, now it's time for us to start defining what we mean when we say it. And that's the challenge now, is that it's such a buzzword. It could mean anything or nothing.
So, what does it exactly mean? I mean, if I am, let's say, trying to create a brand, which even you are, or create a
Sure.
personal brand or a voice that feels relevant
Mm-hmm.
and culturally rooted.
Sure.
So, how do you do that? I mean, so let's say my origins come like I was born and raised in the cleanest city of India. It's called Indore. So that's where my origins come from. And coming
Sure.
from there now, uh, suddenly, if I am living in the United States or I'm living in a different part of the world, does not mean I suddenly disappear or get rid of my roots. However, when I'm working with a certain kind of people, I need to be clear with like the working system and the professional ecosystem, yet I cannot let go of the part where I come from, like my
Sure.
ethnicity, my culture. And like if you would just wish something that comes from my culture, I'll be so happy. I'll feel like it feels like home. Like the lunar year just recently happened, and people are happy. I mean, it's just Chinese
Yeah.
lunar year, who knows about it? But they are still celebrating it. So how do you navigate those cultural nuances and not lose the essence of who you are or you as a brand?
I think that's such a beautiful question. And I mean, for me, it comes, you said something as you were describing, sort of the dynamic there, where you said something that feels like home.
Yeah,
Those are the types of things those are the words that people use to describe when there's some sort of cultural truth or opportunity for connection to make. And so I think the way I navigate that is, I spend a lot of time actually really thinking about who it is, who am I, what do I care about, what what influences and roots I establish my identity and my visions and my dreams and things like that. I think, and it was Oprah who said this, that one of the biggest challenges that we face is that we don't actually spend a lot of time thinking about who we are and what
yeah,
we truly want out of life, what really matters to us. So much of that gets defined by what we see or what we read or what someone else told us was important. And so I spend a lot of time trying to get clear on that. And that's a lifelong journey in and of itself. So from that point of clarity or position of clarity, then it's really easy for me to be, I'm blessed with, I think, a natural interest in who other people are and what they care about and what's important to them and what their dreams are. And so being clear on that for myself, then I can be sort of secure in trying to see what that is for other people and finding places where there's overlap. So yeah, that's how I kind of think about navigating it. Really curious and really sure.
And how do you like decide then these are the skills that you need to work on? So let's say you're designing a brand that, and you say that, I need to make this brand like scale to, let's say, the first 10 or $15,000 a month. And this is how I need to position the campaign, or this is how my marketing positioning looks like. And there are different questions that you tackle when you're designing a campaign or a go to market strategy. So if I put AI in picture and I put the relevance of my campaign, and if I have like, this is my goal and this is what I want to achieve. So how would you design or roadmap a campaign for someone like this with this problem?
So the way I often think about it is a few things. And this is where AI comes in really handy. Because my father used to say all of the time, there's nothing new under the sun, which means that there's a lot of information and things that worked and didn't work out there and at our grasp, right?
Right.
But standard sort of practice for me is to think about the organization or the company that I am or want to be, the brand I am or want to be, the category or the company I keep today and want to keep tomorrow, the sort of larger context of things that maybe exist outside of my control or truths about the culture in which I'm operating. And what does that look like? And then most importantly, in my view, is the consumer or who I'm trying to reach. And in strategy, this is just sort of the standard four C's, right? But when you get into like an insight and a truth for each of those, they get you to a place that says, okay, if this is true about the company, and this is true about the category, and this is true about the context, and this is true about the consumer, then what is the move that I need to make to achieve the goal that I've set for myself? And just looking at those four C's really do uncover a lot in terms of how you should move as a brand.
Wow. I think I'm very clear on how this looks like and how can you actually shape things up that makes a lot of sense? And with that, we actually have a segment which is called 90 Seconds to Teach Me Something. Since we've been talking about different insights right now, if I put you on the spot and I give you 90 seconds, what would you like to talk about or teach me
Um,
primarily?
I suppose that's tough. I think um, 90 seconds to teach something. I guess one of the things that I often think about, and someone complimented me as an agent of progress earlier in my career, and I've been kind of like hooked on that idea that I want to create progress. I want to create change for the better. Life is sort of a never ending journey to better, right? So it doesn't mean things are bad, but it means that how can we make them just a little bit better?
Yeah.
And so the 90 seconds to teach would be, I always use a from to model against anything that I'm proposing or trying to do. Or when I come into a meeting, I say, here's where we are today and here's where we want to go. And so I love that, just a from to. Where am I coming from, being clear, and where do I want to go to is just a sort of a mental thinking model that I try to apply to any conversation or discussion or solution that I'm developing.
Thank you for sharing this. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course.
Creating impact across and coming with the mindset that what change can you as an individual bring out there, and once you start brainstorming, solutions start falling in place
They
eventually.
do. And it comes to, I mean, it starts to be like a second habit for me sometimes. And it might just be I'm walking into a coffee shop and what do I want it to feel like when I leave? Or what do I want this interaction to be with the barista who's helping me before and after I go? But then, of course, it has all of these implications for business as well.
Yeah. Thank you for this. And with this, we move on to the next segment, which
Okay.
is called Seven Questions to Fame. So once you're ready, I'm going to throw seven rapid fire questions along your way, and feel free to answer once you're ready.
Okay, I hope you've got the editor ready. I'm not quick at the draw on certain things.
So the first question goes like, you've talked about building ideas that create value exchange
Yes.
versus pure extraction. What is the exact meaning and which one's more important?
So, and particularly in the context that I work within, I work on behalf of brands and I'm building my own brand where I'm hoping to get something out of it. I'm hoping to get a share of wallet or eyeballs or interest. Um,
Right.
and so that to me, that is value extraction. But what I think we all too often forget to think about is what is the value that we're delivering? When we're asking someone to spend time with us, to spend money with us, to give us their attention,
Right.
what are we really providing to warrant and deserve that? And so
Yeah.
for me, thinking not just about what you want to get out or achieve, but what is it that you can genuinely add value to someone's life? That's the difference between extraction and exchange. And certainly for me, I think value exchange is just more long lasting.
The second question would look like, in the first meeting that we have with someone when it comes to you pitching them what you're building or you pitching them as a brand, what should you be focusing on so that your personality or your conversation gets imprinted on them?
And I'm not sure if the statistic is correct, but I've heard that you can, in a 1 hour meeting, a person will remember about 15% of that conversation. And usually it has to do with what happens at the very beginning and what happens at the very end. And so at the very beginning, I say you're trying to establish relationship, rapport, and credibility. And at the very end, for some reason we go into pitches and conversations and we get really nervous when it's time to make the ask. And I say make that as clear and direct and comfortable as possible.
Got it. The next question looks like, if you had to explain in three steps that this is how you create a brand or a piece of content that can transcend into cultures and
Mm-hmm.
stays relevant, moreover, legacy content, how would that look like?
Oh, 3 steps. That's tough. The first question is, I guess it's 3 questions to ask. Who we are or what we are, and being really clear about that. Who we're for and what they love, and being really clear about that. And then the third step is, as part of the development, um, how we act and how we express ourselves. So those are like sort of the 3 pieces, and the first two guide the third.
Understood. Now my brain is also thinking of different areas. Once I'll have the translate, I'll be like, oh yeah, this is how you create a roadmap. What
Sure.
was that one space for you that changed completely everything and made you have balanced these two things for you overall? That this is like right now, I am focusing on my day job and I'm focusing on this as well. When did that moment happen when you took two things on your platter simultaneously?
Um, so the I have to give a lot of credit to the originator and creator of this IP that we're developing. But she shared it with me, and she had a real passion for it. And she was just looking for a bit of guidance on, what might she do to take it from an idea on paper into something that actually gets developed. And what I thought might be a couple of conversations turned into multiple weekly meetings. And it was because I was really excited and really wanted to see it succeed and saw all of this potential in it. Um, and so, yeah, seeing the potential unlocked in me a passion for wanting to make it happen. And after that, whereas I might have thought there's no way I can do these two things at once, something about the universe just opened up the time and space for me to focus on both in ways that I should.
If you had to pick and choose later on between any one of them, do you think that focusing on one is better, or you would still like to build both of them at an intersection or parallelly?
I think at some point, it's possible that just there's only 24 hours in a day, and hopefully some of those I'm sleeping. It's possible that one might demand so much attention that I can't do both things well. But I don't see that eventuality just yet. I love the challenge and the benefit of using my brain in these multiple ways. And what I've been able to do, I'm blessed to be able to do it, is create team and community and support systems and plans that allow me to create the time and space to do both.
That's very relevant, and I love how you've been able to have that understanding on what needs more attention and when you would know when to shift on to something that's more important at that point in
Sure.
time.
And the thing is can I do both of these things well? Whenever
Right.
the answer is no, I need to decide between them.
For someone who's a cultural marketer and has a thought process like that, what should be more important for them? Revenue or impact?
I mean, this is my personal philosophy. And I genuinely believe this is true. And I think the market has bared this out in certain ways, but I would 100% suggest that impact is first and foremost. And when you make impact, revenue follows.
Wow. Thank you. And the last question to this round would be, what is that one concept that you feel everyone who wants to understand the kind of impact that one needs to create with a brand, specifically on the culture side of it?
Hmm,
And as you talked about, content IPs that are relevant and easier, like entertainment IPs.
sure.
So, what is that fundamental concept that everyone should know of, but they don't?
I think the the fundamental concept is that when I say impact first and then revenue follows, what generates that revenue is the idea, the perception, the reality, I guess, of momentum. And so I would suggest that the moment of launch, yes, you can have your beta, you can have your test and learns and things like that, but the moment of launch, be really focused on what those first impressions are and be really focused on how you can generate momentum off the swings of that. When someone sees that more and more people are talking about something, or more and more people are watching, or week over week there's a growing crescendo, no matter how small that trajectory is, people want to be on the upside of it. And so I would suggest that that launch moment, critical is the way you plan and design for momentum.
Got it. Thank you so much for this one. And I really appreciate how you've come along and structured this. We do we end the round. However, I'd love to carry the discussion more on understanding the launch strategy. And as you said, the strategy should be based on momentum, and momentum is very important. So, if you had, since you work in strategy and that's what you help brands with, how do you create a strategy that has a momentum or a strong launch with continued momentum?
So the way I think about that, and it depends on the, those four C's that I talked about, but the way I think about that is sort of designing really the first 6 months or first 12 months and really thinking about what success looks like in day one, week one, month two, month three. And just like sometimes we just forget to, you kind of, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, but really being clear on what success looks like. And then I kind of take those objectives or those goals and then design a plan to achieve that so that it all starts to kind of flow together. So that by the time I get to the launch moment, I'm almost like that's happening. I've already designed for that. I'm working on what's going to be happening in month three because I've already designed for what's happening in week one and month one, and just sort of like have those plans in place to kind of create that domino effect.
Got it. Thank you so much for this. And I really appreciate the conversation that we've been having till now. And we have the final segment that's called the deep dive. So, as of now,
Okay.
if you felt that we could not touch on something that you feel is very relevant right now for people, and we should be talking in depth about it, this is the moment.
We've gotten quite in depth. I'll say I can't think of anything major that we didn't cover. Um, I guess I could talk for hours about uh, finding, establishing, and shaping one's identity, and that being that place of originality, being the sort of engine for what we create. But I think we've covered enough for today. I would just encourage all listeners to sort of believe in that voice, believe in the idea, um, hear no, and then find out what gets to a yes. Um, because yeah, when you really believe in something, um, it's worth pursuing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this one. I think that's the true crux of it. That believe in something that's worth spreading, and it would be spread. And I think that positive mindset of believing, acting, seeing a result, enhancing the belief, and then acting. That loop
Yes,
is really important because if I believe on something and not act on it, it does not make any sense. So
that's
you need to
right.
believe, act, enhance the belief, and then again keep that
I
loop
love
going
that way of
on.
putting it. That's beautifully put. Exactly.
But that's really good to think of. And with this, the last question for this episode would be that since we are in the changing times, everything's changing, identities are changing. You have different technologies, you have AI, you have everything's changing dynamically. If you had to tell someone that this is how you be relevant, what would that one statement that one should carry with them to be relevant out there?
Um, I think that I think that most people are looking for something real. I would say, and so I think that real is almost always relevant. And when it's not, I don't know if I want to be there anyway. So if real is relevant, then the thing to do to be relevant is to be true, to know thyself.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for this wonderful sharing. And I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I really hope that we get to collaborate and ideate more. But thank you so much for this.
Thank you again for having me. I have loved the conversation, and again, very, very much admire the community that you've built and all of the guests that you've had before.